Hello, I'm Susan Gorley, Superintendent of Lincoln Public Schools, and I'm here with my friend Bentley. Bentley is one of 16 Edu-PUPS currently in Lincoln Public Schools. Bentley is a wonderful friend to students. Dogs such as Bentley in the Edu-PUP therapy program are a big part of our educational program. They help students level out their emotions, they help with behavior management in the classroom, and often a relationship with a dog like Bentley leads to a better relationship with teachers and other students. We're very pleased to have the Edu-PUP program in our schools and look forward to expanding the program to other schools, both here in Lincoln and hopefully around the state of Nebraska.
Sadie has a real calming effect in the classroom. As I said before, she's just such a gentle soul that she is accepting and has such a non-judgmental aura about her that the kids gravitate towards her and know that if they're working well and getting their jobs done, eventually they get to spend time with Sadie. So it has a great effect in the room.
Max affects our climate and environment on many different levels. For example, in the morning, Mrs. Kennedy brings Max down into the gym where our kids line up for before school. And when he walks in, the kids are happy to see him. It just puts a positive spin on the day. He greets each one of the students in Mrs. Kennedy's classroom, which puts the kids at ease.
Well, by the time we get upstairs, they're a little excited. So Kyoto and Mrs. Ruppnow are usually waiting for us in the room, and he helps motivate the students to get their morning jobs done, sharpening their pencils, filling their water bottles, and he's waiting patiently to see them at their desk. Well, he comes around and they can pet him once they start to work, and so they're motivated to get to their seats to begin their morning routine.
We've got a student who is in the BD classroom, and he spends a lot of his time working towards working with one of the dogs, and it's a great motivating factor for him to be able to earn that reward time.
Zeke's presence coming up to a child who's either angry or very emotional or perseverating on a behavior, a child that's in conflict with the adult, Zeke's presence helps that child refocus. It takes away the tension between the adult and the child, because here is this loving creature coming up with this unconditional love offer, and it allows that he loves our children. He allows the children to pet him. Children pet him, and that action of engaging with Zeke in a very caring, loving way helps dissipate their anger or their otherwise tense emotional response. They calm down, heart rate decreases, blood pressure decreases, the child becomes much calmer and able to move from that emotional tension to a thinking state. Over the last several years, have had 2 different children who had issues with coming to school. And one, they just didn't want to come. They didn't want to separate from mom or dad. And every morning, it seemed, for a while, the car would pull up at the curb and we'd get a call from mom, or mom would motion one of us over to the car. And this little girl didn't want to get out. She didn't want to come to school. She was very sad, didn't want to leave mom. Zeke went over and Mrs. Mahoney would say, "Oh, Zeke really needs you to walk him into school. This is part of your responsibility." And by making that her job, it eventually eased the process to get that little girl into school.
It always seems that when some of our students have problems, it happens over the lunch hour. Last Friday, Mr. Rust, our AP, was busy with one student. I was in the cafeteria, did not have another certified staff member, was called to go up to 5th grade. One of our students with autism had a meltdown. I said, you need to get somebody down here in the cafeteria to take over my position, so that I had somebody in the cafeteria watching the kids so I could go handle this. Well, by the time somebody came down, I came running down the steps, and here Max is leading the student, you know, just happy, you know, tail wagging down to the resource center. And I just stopped because, first of all, I was a little surprised Max didn't have his leash on, which is not something that happens. Well, Mrs. Kennedy heard that the 5th grade girl was having a meltdown. She immediately took Max in there, asked her if she would walk Max down to the resource room, and that she needed to watch him very carefully because Max didn't have his leash on. Well, Max was like a little puppy because he knew this is something new. I don't have my leash on. Walked her down there, turned the situation completely around. I wasn't even needed.
After the initial reaction and understanding of having a dog in the classroom, the kids really settle down to the fact that they're there, and the rewards that you get from having a dog in the classroom, those kids can focus on goals of working with the animal, teamwork. Just, I don't think that that's an issue at all. In fact, I think there are many kids that find out, oh, I'm in the classroom with a dog, and this is going to be a great benefit for me.
I think about a little student who was really an ELL student at the time, who was learning disabled, who had been attacked by a dog and was totally afraid to go near. And when he would see Kyoto, he responded in that fear. But within like the first few months of school, I watched that child totally turn that thing around. And he used very few words, but he could eventually say Kyoto. And he could eventually request to want to pet Kyoto. So I watched that change for him. Here was a child that was just totally terrified of dogs. And he was placed in a position where he could, on his own, inquire and investigate.
When my student is out in the hallway getting ready for the day, and she sees Kyoto, she'll look at me and say, oh, it's a Kyoto day, my time with Kyoto.
Because the student's behavior is better when Max is in the classroom, they're more willing to do what is necessary to stay in the classroom because they want to be in there with them. And Mrs. Kennedy promotes Max as Max will go by students who are working hard, that are paying attention, that are focusing. So I really feel it does affect student achievement down the road, because kids with behavior that weren't getting the education or getting the lesson are now in the classroom listening to the lesson. So yes, it will be a factor down the road.
What Kyoto brings to a child is somebody that's going to listen to him. And Mrs. Rupp now can do interventions with them as far as correcting, and helping them. But it's not as threatening as having to even read to a peer. Here is a dog that's like, okay, tell me all the words on this page. And he can do that. And if a child can fall in love with reading and want to pick up a book on their own, then we have made progress. Once they start to read, just reading every day, and Mrs. Rupp now always tells them, read, 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 read. And the more they read, the better they will become. So then their attitude can change toward, normally where they would look at that book like, ew, they might want to pick up a book.
Zeke does have a positive effect on students' learning. As I said, he helps individuals set goals. And each of our grade levels set their own, and each of our classes set their own achievement goals in math and reading for each quarter. and we post those on a bulletin board. And Zeke modeled setting goals and practicing learning and then performing what he had learned. And Mrs. Mahoney taught Zeke to read. She taught him to read 3 things: sit, speak, and roll over. Now at the first, she had big posters made up, said sit. And she would show him sit, and he would do it. He'd read the word. Now you know he's not really reading the word, it's just the order of commands. But he could do the first 2 at the end of the first quarter assembly. But he couldn't get that 2-word phrase, roll over. Oh, that was hard. So he modeled, practice, keep working on your goal, achieve your goal. He came back the next quarter, he could read all 3 words, all 3 phrases. It's been my experience that this is an outstanding training program. The Edu-PUPS therapy course that our therapy dog went through is very consistent, very thorough. And if you trust the teacher to do a good job of training, Edu-PUPS does a wonderful job of backing that person up and training that dog. I was a little skeptical about having a dog that size. I was worried a little bit about liability. I thought, what if the dog bites someone? Or what about those allergy issues? And what about detracting or distracting from what our real emphasis is on learning? And do we really have time to cater to the needs of an animal this size and that would take this amount of time? And I can say that I've been very, very pleased with the work Edu-PUPS have done with Mrs. Mahoney and Zeke. He's a benefit to our learning environment, as I've stated in so many other ways. It's not a detractor. Having Zeke, having a therapy dog, is an enhancement to our program. And I'd encourage people to try it.
I feel very comfortable in the education that these dogs have had. The 2 dogs that we have, Kyoto and Max, are well trained. They have never been aggressive. They've been very patient with the students, with the staff. They somehow have a sense. We have one staff member that is highly afraid of dogs, but has not expressed a concern to me because the teachers know that. The dogs don't go near her, and she's very comfortable with it. She saw the turnaround of behavior with these dogs being here, so she sees the positive side of it. As far as allergies, I haven't been concerned. We watch the health risks or the concerns of students, but I have not had one parent ever say anything to me about it. And as far as telling principals about this program, I would highly recommend it. Start off small. We had Max, for 2 years. Now we have Kyoto. We have another teacher that's having a dog trained. I encourage her to have the trained dog come in. I think it's something every principal should look at.